What I'll be talking about today is not necessarily a service provider-centric point of view, but it really touches upon those devices that are typically associated with those players, things such as the residential gateway. After my session, Yuri will talk about more of the, let's say, the B2B side of things, the bring your own device side of things, and how AllJoyn and its infrastructure and Mobility Labs product can be used in a B2B environment. All right? Okay, so before I get talking about the solution itself, let's just frame a couple of the problems. First and foremost, as if you're a service provider or if you are an integrated player that brings a vertically integrated end-to-end solution to market, what are the challenges that you face compared to some of the other solutions that are out there? First and foremost, it's very important to understand the requirements with regards to user experience. You know, the Apples and Googles of the world, they've basically raised the bar in terms of what user experience is concerned. The consumers expect a certain level of integration between their devices when they interact. How are you going to bring that? How are you going to create that type of user experience if you don't control all of the devices in the home? You know, if you just think about all of the devices, the connected or smart devices that you have in your home today, where have you bought them? How many different manufacturers are you talking about? I bet you that there's not 2 or 3 that are from the same manufacturer or from the same reseller, okay? So in a de facto heterogeneous ecosystem like this, how do we still create a neat and tightly integrated user experience? How do we compete on a user experience level with what the expectations of the consumers are? Second, Internet of Things, of course. I'm not going to present the numbers here because we've all seen them before. You know, 7 trillion in revenues generated by Internet of Things by 2020. That's all good and well. I think that's very likely to happen if we, as a community, do our job well. Okay? It's not going to happen if we keep doing things in our own little vertical, if we keep doing things combined with, you know, maybe 1 or 2 other players in the market. No, we need to create a large mass market type environment in order for this to be successful. Because we have to remember that the average consumer doesn't care about technology as such. They care about solutions. So that's something that we need to solve. That's a problem that we need to solve. And last but not least, how do you monetize something? Especially when it's a standard. Standard has the connotation that everyone is doing the same thing, right? So from a standard, how do you build something that you can still monetize? So one of the things that is important to understand is that typically, what is usually the case is that each and every standard that you need to support in your device, whether those be, you know, physical network protocols, whether those be IP layer protocols for communication with media services, they all add cost and complexity to your device without being clear in terms of what they generate for on return of investment. So how does AllSeen tackle that problem? Those are kind of the 3 questions that I want to answer in my presentation to you here today. All right. So, and you've seen 1 or 2 of these slides in Philip's very quick presentation earlier this morning. But if you remember what when the first iPhone was introduced, Steve Jobs got on stage, did this very iconic thing where he took the smartphone, rotated it 90 degrees, and the screen automatically followed, right? Went from portrait into landscape. In order to provide that functionality, they had to build in gyroscopes and accelerometers into the device. And it was a neat effect. It's a very recognizable gesture. It made the iPhone immediately stand out from other devices in the market at that point in time. But the really clever thing that they did back then was make that information from those sensors, from those accelerometers, from the gyroscope available to application developers. Because now you have all of these kinds of, you know, health applications, games, fitness trackers, and so forth that are using these sensors to bring more exciting use cases on top of the basic information that was available in those devices. And that's what AllSeen is trying to do. We basically want to give you the SDK of the connected home. All of the devices that are scattered across the home, that your users are buying from different manufacturers, from different service providers, over-the-top internet service providers, doesn't matter. All of these devices provide information that you can build applications on top of. So basically, the home turns into the next platform. This is where, from an app store model, you're going to the home as a platform. This is where you're going to be making money in the near future. So if you think back about the 3 questions or the 3 challenges that I mentioned before, how does AllSeen actually address these things? Well, first and foremost, it's about user experience. A unified ecosystem means that you don't have to bother with implementing different versions of your app for different heterogeneous makeups of homes, right? You can just target the AllSeen ecosystem and you're good to go. That's the underlying message in terms of user experience. One user experience, no matter which devices that the consumer uses. Mass market appeal. I mentioned when I was saying this that typically a normal consumer doesn't care about technology. The only thing that he or she cares about is about the functionality that a given device provides, which means that we need to create devices that don't ask more of our users' attention. We need to create devices that are capable of making smart decisions on behalf of the consumer, instead of pushing yet another user interface in the consumer's face and asking them to interact. Please, please interact with my device because that's important for me. What we want to be doing is creating devices that give the consumer, give the end user more free time. And AllSeen allows that. I call it creating intelligent and ambient user experiences. And AllSeen allows that by making all of the information that is available across all of these sensors and smart devices in the home, making all of that information available to application developers and service providers to build those smart use cases on top of. If you have access to the information, you're going to be able to make decisions on behalf of the user. All right? And then there's the question about monetization. And the first step to monetization is making sure that you don't spend more money than you have to. That's why the AllSeen Alliance is not a specification. That's why the AllSeen Alliance is not a standard in the classical sense of the word. That's why the AllSeen Alliance provides you with a ready-to-go implementation that you can put on your devices or integrate in your applications. There's actual code there that you can integrate in your applications to get you started. That greatly decreases the cost of integrating AllSeen in your devices. So if the cost is greatly reduced, the next step is how do we go from the relatively small cost to building something that we can actually monetize? And that, again, they're on top of all of these APIs, on top of all of those data sources that are now available in the connected home, you can actually imagine new and exciting differentiated use cases that are built on top of the framework. So you don't differentiate. If you sell a TV, you don't differentiate by including a remote control. Everyone has a remote control. A remote control is a standard component or a standard thing that is accepted in a television set. You differentiate by adding the smart features on top of them. It's exactly the same thing with the AllSeen framework. You don't differentiate by just putting AllSeen on your device, although in the short term you might be able to do that. But eventually you build really intelligent and really interesting use cases on top of the framework. And that is how you make money. Given the fact that it's very easy to integrate, that you get the code for free, that there's a huge community of developers at your disposal that are working on this for you, it's clear that AllSeen is one of the best ways that you can monetize the Internet of Things for your devices, applications, and services. So the title of the presentation has mobile in it, so you want to... examples of monetization of AllSeen, you could think of the devices that are on demo here. All of them implement a specific use case, right? What they're selling is that use case. What they're getting, and I think it was mentioned in one of the previous presentations, integrating AllSeen or AllJoin, the framework, was so easy and straightforward that I think it was the presentation from Fon, if I'm not mistaken, that the use case that they built on top of it almost came naturally, was much more easy to implement, and the use case is the thing that they're actually monetizing, right? So you don't monetize AllJoin or AllSeen. AllSeen allows you to more easily, more quickly monetize your clever idea on top of the standard. That's kind of the point I was trying to make, right? So the title of the presentation had mobile in it, and that's why I want to quickly introduce to you the concept of nomadic devices. Nomadic devices are anything that is sometimes connected to the home network, but at other times is not connected to the home network. The poster child is, of course, the smartphone. Everyone in the previous presentations had, at some point, a rendering of a smartphone on the screen with a certain UI that was meant to depict interaction with the connected home. Now, we all know that smartphones are sometimes connected to the Wi-Fi network, they're sometimes connected to the LTE network, and they're sometimes connected to a Starbucks hotspot. It doesn't matter what they're connected to. That provides context to your application, but you should still always be able to communicate with those devices in the home, right? And it's not just smartphones, it goes over smartphones, wearables. The connected car is probably the biggest and most expensive Internet of Things device that is out there, right? So if you consider all of these devices in your use cases and you consider the richness of information that they can provide to you in order to build your applications on top of, it's important to understand what the specific needs and requirements for those devices are. And you can split that up into two parts. You can talk about the user experience. How does a nomadic device, a device that is sometimes in my home and sometimes not in my home, how does that impact the user experience? Ideally, how should I design the perfect user experience for that device? And from a developer's point of view. The developer's point of view is the easy part, unfortunately. That means that you get to use the same data model, you get to use the same framework, you get to use the same approach to communicating with your device, whether it's in the home or it's outside of the home. It doesn't matter, right? You don't want to duplicate code. You don't want to talk to the devices directly when you're in the home using one protocol and then use a cloud protocol when you're outside of the home. You're just duplicating information. It makes no sense to do the added cost. It makes no sense to add the extra room for mistakes and things like that, okay? The more interesting part is how you design your application based on the information of where you are. And this already touches a little bit on location-based awareness for making your applications more intelligent in what they present to the consumer, but it's very, very rough, right? It's just in the home, outside of the home. But that piece of information alone is something that you should leverage to build your application's user experience with. You expect, you know, if I'm in the home and I launch my thermostat app, I might want to just have directly pop up the dial that allows me to set the current temperature. If I'm on the train on the way home, I might just want to indicate that I'm on my way home and to set the pre-programmed temperature, right? So the context of where you are, if you're inside or outside of the home, will lead the application to present to you a different type of user experience. So differentiating on that information is extremely important in order to make truly successful applications. Because remember, we don't want people, and you know, the guys from Muesli already mentioned it, you can do things like machine learning in order to improve the way that the user interacts with your application. We don't want them to just take out their smartphone, launch an application, navigate to a specific device, and then flip a switch. That's never going to work, right? That comes back to the whole point about people not being interested in interacting with technology in that way. There's also the network side of things. Different networks have different physical properties. If I have a security camera in my home, I might want to stream HD video over Wi-Fi to my device when I'm in the home. When I'm on an LTE network, or maybe worse, on a legacy network, Edge or 3G or something like that, where bandwidth is limited, quality of service is limited in comparison to the Wi-Fi network, you might want to scale that back to maybe VGA or 720p or something like that, right? Or you might want to trim the frame rate down a little bit. So taking that information into account and applying it to network features and functionality is important as well. Not to mention the cost perspective, right? I have 5 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes, maybe on my mobile subscription. In my home, I have infinite bandwidth, infinite amount of bytes that I can spend. Okay? So you need a different approach for that. So how do we go beyond what is in AllJoin called the proximal network? The proximal network basically is the physical home network where, any physical same network where all of your devices are directly in touch with each other. In order to extend that, we in AllJoyn have something called the Gateway Agent. It was released at CES this year, 2015, version 1.0, and it provides a number of basic pieces of functionality that are important for mobile devices. So some of the things that it does is it allows you to link your home with cloud services. Okay? You can always, of course, make a device and drop that device in the home and link it up to a cloud itself. But at some point, the user is going to be oversaturated with new gateway-type devices that are all looking for their own connection to the internet and to the cloud. So the Gateway Agent allows you to host multiple cloud services on one single device. Social networks and applications, are a good example of this. You're not going to buy a Facebook device or a Google Plus device, but you might want to expose the information from your Facebook account or your Google Plus account into the home via the Gateway Agent. Another thing that it does, which is not as closely related to the mobile use cases, is it allows you to connect to other proximal networks. Ocean gave an example of this earlier today. You can use the Gateway Agent actually to bridge to those types of physical layer network protocols. Two important design goals for the Gateway Agent. First and foremost, security. We're exposing information from the home to the internet. You have to be very aware of what you're doing there. So you have to be very careful about the security repercussions of that. So we want to ensure through the Gateway Agent that security is enforced between the AllJoyn endpoints, end-to-end security. Okay? So the Gateway Agent will facilitate that. Secondly, only authorized traffic in and out of the network, in and out of the proximal network. So when you install a gateway application on your device, it doesn't gain access to your entire home immediately. It's actually firewalled and only gains access to those specific components that are particular to that application. So you're not exposing more than you have to. This is what it looks like. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much because at 4, I think it's at 4 this afternoon, Art has a section on the Gateway Agent dedicated to the Gateway Agent where it's going to talk more about the technology that is associated with it, what you'll be able to do with it, and so forth. But this is I wanted to take it up in my presentation as well, not to steal Art's thunder, but this is an essential part of integrating mobile devices intelligently with the rest of the AllSeen ecosystem. Okay? So it allows you to do a number of things. It is completely safe from a security perspective, which is, as I mentioned before, an extremely important component for devices that move outside of the home, for services that you expose outside of the home. And there are 3 points in security that I want to quickly touch upon. First being the gateway. If you're a service provider, you don't just want any application to mess with the rest of the functionality of your gateway. You're an internet service provider. What you're bringing is an internet service, and the internet service should be as stable as possible. That's your #1 concern. We understand that, and the Gateway Agent facilitates that, right? What it does is it sandboxes all of these third-party modules that can be installed on those gateway devices in a sandbox, okay? So they cannot touch any of the basic functionality of your gateway device. There are no worries there. They cannot touch any of the other third-party applications' data or information. Secondly, this is what I mentioned on the previous slide actually already, you can only get a filtered view of the LAN when you install applications on your home network. If you install an app, a standard app on any device that you have in the home, it's going to have full access to your home network. So you're immediately extending the attack surface of your home by, 3, 4, 5-fold, depending on how many devices you actually install. Okay? Instead of doing that, if you install it on the Gateway Agent, it will not get access to the LAN. It doesn't have access to the LAN at all. The only thing that it has access to is the APIs of the Gateway Agent, which will expose the AllSeen interfaces. Okay? So this is a much more secure way of adding yet another device or application to your home network. Privacy. When designing applications, take into account that users are becoming more and more aware of the privacy repercussions of the things that they install and add to their home network. Put the user in control. Don't make it complex. You don't need to ask him to, set up all kinds of policies and things like that. But when you ask, when you need access to certain data points, tell the user, this application requires access to data points. Actually, AllSeen will enforce that for you. The Security 2.0 framework that we're developing right now will enforce manifests that AllSeen applications come with, which means that you will never gain access beyond what it basically is that you need. It will provide you with the ability to review the list of permissions. Just think of the fact that when you install an app on your smartphone, it tells you, I'm going to access your camera and your contacts and so forth and so forth. If that doesn't make sense for a flashlight application, it shouldn't make sense for a light bulb either, right? So Security 2.0 will enforce those kinds of things as well. So to summarize, designing great mobile Internet of Things apps. One, target the entire ecosystem. AllSeen allows you to target as many devices as possible. I think Philip said that there are 10 million devices out there today. We're looking at 1 billion devices by the end of the year. That is phenomenal, okay? So make use of that. Put AllSeen in your devices, help us grow the ecosystem, and benefit from the growth together. Secondly, take your location into account. Design your user experience for whatever scenario you're predicting that the user is actually expecting at that point in time. Optimize whether you're in the home or out the home and provide an optimized user experience for those situations. And three, design for security. You're exposing personal, private information from the user to the internet. So make use of the Security 2.0 framework, integrate it in your applications to ensure that your applications don't expose more information than they need to, and ask the user for permission for everything that you gain access to. Okay? That's it. That's all I had to say here for today. Before handing over to Yuri, who will be presenting more of a B2B view on things, I'd like to take any questions if there are any. Is it a good sign or a bad sign that no one's raising their hands? Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.